Good morning. Welcome to the Reporting 2022-2023 Data webinar. This webinar was originally presented on August 3rd. It has been re-recorded in its original form due to technical issues that affected the audio of that recording. The script is identical to the original script that was used in the webinar that was presented on August 3rd, 2023. Thank you for joining our webinar on reporting EPP data for the 2022-2023 reporting year. We aim to cover everything thoroughly, but we understand you may have additional questions. So please record your questions in the GoToWebinar question field, and we will respond through frequently asked questions or personal communication after the webinar. Remember, questions in the question section on the GoToWebinar toolbar will be captured, but those in chat will not be retained. The webinar is being recorded, and the recording, along with the related FAQs, will be available on the Program Provider Resources page on the TEA website. Our goals for this webinar are, first, to provide the guidance for data reporting tasks this year and identify some resources available to you for the reporting 2022-2023 data. Please note that for the remainder of this training, I will refer to the reporting year as 22-23. Additionally, this is an opportunity for you to gather your thoughts and questions around ASEP reporting this year and provide those to TEA so that we can publish responses for the good of the group. Please ask and we will respond. Let's review some relevant terms that I'll be referencing in this webinar. First, as we all know, EPP is the Educator Preparation Program, which you are here representing today. The CDN is the unique 6-digit county district number that is assigned to each EPP. Every program, certificate, and class the EPP offers is under the same CDN. ECOS is the Educator Certification Online System, which houses the educator data statewide. TEAID is the identification number used for certification and exam registration process. ASEP is a term for the Accountability System for Educator Preparation Programs and is also a drop-down menu in the ECOS for Entities green screen. This is important because everything under the ASEP menu locks each year after the reporting year closes and cannot be updated after the lock. Some roles that may be referenced today are the EPP legal authority, who is the ultimate responsible party for the EPP. All official communications are sent to the legal authority, and that individual is the authorized person who signs documents on behalf of the EPP and manages EPP staff access to ECOS for Entities. Some EPPs have identified a backup legal authority who can assist with those duties. The certification officer first and foremost recommends certificates. However, in many EPPs, that role may also be responsible for other areas, such as admissions, test approval, and/or state reporting. Some EPPs have a person whose function is specifically to report data each year. Whoever does the reporting would need to have the ASEP update role in ECOS for Entities. We will later refer to clinical experience records that EPPs must report for 22-23 and going forward. A clinical experience is referring to the clinical teaching, internship, or practicum requirement. In this webinar, we'll discuss reporting details, but first, let's provide some context. Texas Education Code, TEC, and Texas Administrative Code, TAC, require educator preparation programs to report specific information and data to the state annually. This data is used to determine EPP accreditation status and is also provided to consumers. The ASEP manual in Figure 19 TAC 229.1c outlines the data calculations and performance standards for EPP accreditation. If you are new to the EPP, it's essential to review these requirements periodically. Remember that each program within the EPP contributes to the data collected each year. So, effective communication across the programs is vital for efficient and accurate data collection and reporting processes. The Figure 19 TAC 229.3F1 contains additional information about data that is required to be collected from EPPs. Data generated in the 22-23 academic year will be used to determine the accreditation status for EPPs. This slide frames up the continuum of reporting and where we are in that process. Note the gold circle. We are this close to reporting time. The reporting year began on 9/1/2022. TEA has worked closely with EPPs since that point to facilitate a smooth reporting experience. In March, TEA provided mid-year data sets and updates to assist with reconciling data. We continue to enhance the ECOS for Entities green screen to support timely and accurate reporting, which we will talk about more as we progress through this training. Now, in August, state reporting for 22-23 data is approaching, with a due date of September 15th, as specified in TAC. The data reporting requirements remain unchanged, as outlined in TAC. If your EPP has been consistently uploading data throughout the year, completing the data reporting task now should only require some final touches. The data reporting manual remains the best resource for EPP staff on detail and instruction around required reporting, especially for those that are new to the process. There are useful examples and screenshots throughout the manual. You will find the most recent version of the data reporting manual posted on the Program Provider Resources page on the TEA website. For most efficient service, when you need assistance during state reporting, use the TEA Help Desk system. This process is preferred because the Help Desk does not cycle out tickets like our email does, ensuring that your submission won't get lost amidst the avalanche of emails during state reporting time. Additionally, it is secure, so if you must send files that contain candidate identifiers, you can do so with confidence. When submitting a file for review or a request for correction form or affidavit, please help us by labeling your file or form as in this example. Submit forms and inquiries to the data reporting tile. No need to notify your education specialist separately, as the Help Desk system will automatically send us an email when your ticket arrives. A note about Help Desk. As you know, in May and early June, TEA moved the Help Desk to a new platform. It became apparent the platform was not performing optimally, so we transitioned back to the old platform. We have not experienced any problems since our transition back to the old platform, so Help Desk should still be the best mode of communication during state reporting time. Additionally, the education specialists at TEA are always a resource, including for state reporting assistance. When you do need to seek assistance from a live person at TEA, please make your first stop one of the education specialists or me, Lori Ayers. We can usually provide the assistance you need. Mark is a valuable expert in data and reporting. However, as the workload can become overwhelming if everyone contacts him directly for state reporting inquiries, we kindly request that during this period you reach out to the education specialist first for assistance. We are all well equipped to provide support and guidance to you. If needed, we will involve Mark or Marilyn, our other team members, to ensure your needs are promptly addressed in a professional manner. To help reconcile your data, TEA provided various data sets at mid-year. You've recently received principal and teacher survey rosters to verify and request exceptions to the survey data if needed. Those requests for exceptions were due by August 1st, 2023. Next, expect preliminary observation data sets to be populated in the ShareFile system on Friday, September 2nd, 2023. Your legal authority or primary point of contact will receive an email reminder when the data sets are uploaded. These sets will reflect observation data reported up until that point. EPPs can generate an admission report to verify admission data, so TEA won't send admission data. For efficient communication with TEA, please keep TEA informed of any key staff changes, such as your legal authority, primary point of contact, or certification officer. Your education specialist can help with updating contact information if needed. This is an overview of what you should have completed or should be in process of completing to prepare to submit your data on September 15th. First, for all programs within your EPP, such as your undergraduate teacher program, post-bac principal program, school counselor program, etc., you must compile and report the number of applicants throughout the 22-23 academic year. If you haven't tracked this data, gather the information before September 15th. We'll discuss this further on another slide. Next, you will ensure admitted candidates have a complete admission record. Some teacher candidate records might be missing subject-specific content hours and the related GPA, or SAT, ACT, GRE scores if applicable. Review and update admission records to include all required areas for each candidate. You can use the upload to edit functionality to edit multiple records or make manual adjustments to editable fields in an individual record. This helps maintain accuracy and completeness. For the 22-23 reporting year, candidates in all programs within your EPP fall into three categories: finishers, if they've completed all requirements, other enrolled, if they're still working on requirements, or removed, if they've left the program during the year for any reason. Note, EPPs are able to view each status by filtering the finisher records list. New for 22-23 is the clinical experience record. EPPs will create a record for each candidate who started or completed the clinical teaching, internship, or practicum in 22-23. Finally, remember that reporting observations is mandatory for all teacher and non-teacher candidates completing clinical teaching, internships, or practicums in your EPP programs. If you have not started uploading observations, it's best to do so now to avoid potential slowdowns in ECOS as we near the deadline. Don't wait until the last minute to upload observations. Remember that you must report all observations that occurred in 22-23, which means any observations with dates from 9/1/22 through 8/31/23. So if any observations were completed this summer, such as for your superintendent candidates, they must be reported in the 22-23 reporting year. Observations with dates in 22-23 cannot be reported in 23-24. ECOS will not accept edits to a locked year. Let's now look at the individual reporting areas in more detail, starting with applicant data. Reporting the number of individuals who applied to all programs within the EPP is required. By definition, these individuals are applicants. The number of all applicants in your applied data may be the same as or different than the total number of admitted candidates in your admission data, depending on if you admitted every applicant or not. In the preparation process, individuals must apply to an EPP before they can be admitted. EPPs are required to report the total number of applicants for all programs during the academic year and must also report the number applied disaggregated by gender and by race ethnicity groups. The number of applicants, or the total applied number, must be equal to or greater than the number of persons admitted. Practically speaking, EPPs cannot admit more candidates than the number who applied for admission. To report applied numbers this year, use the Applied portal on the Annual Performance Report menu item in the ECOS green screen. This means we will not use the APR applied spreadsheets this year to report this data. This is the Annual Performance Report, which summarizes candidate enrollment and EPP applicants as of the end of the reporting year. TEA populates most of the information in this report from the data you report in admissions and on the finisher records list. You can see the applied column has space for the EPP to report the applied numbers. EPPs may continue to update these numbers throughout the year as needed. New numbers will save over previous numbers. Once ASEP locks, no edits can be made to these numbers. We hope you find this update useful. The form is intuitive, but there are instructions at the top. Just select the reporting year, which will be 22-23, and populate the applied fields. To report the applied numbers, count all individuals who applied to each program in your EPP during the 22-23 reporting year, such as teacher undergraduates, teacher alternative certification, principal postbac, superintendent alternative certification, etc. Report all applicants as one total all number for the EPP that is not broken out by program. Next, you will disaggregate the all number by gender and record the numbers in rows 2 and 3. Then complete rows 4 through 7 by disaggregating the all number by race ethnicity. If you don't have demographic information for one or more applicants, you still need to include those applicants in the all count, but would not include them in the demographic group count. In that case, your demographic group numbers would not add up to the all number, which is acceptable. When you are checking your work to ensure that your data is accurate, keep in mind that the total of rows 2 and 3 cannot exceed the all number in row 1. Likewise, the total numbers in rows 4 through 7 cannot exceed the all number in row 1. For your convenience, ECOS will validate those numbers and flash an error message if your demographic group totals exceed the all number. Before finalizing your 22-23 data, remember to check the applied all number in row 1 against your admitted number in maintain admissions to make sure the applied all number is greater than or equal to the total admitted number. ECOS will not validate these numbers for you, so remember to check this right before you finalize your data just to be sure those last-minute updates to your admission list did not change the balance between the applied and admitted numbers. As previously mentioned, you can continue to edit the applied numbers throughout your reporting experience by writing over the previous number and saving. This page will lock with the other pages in ECOS at 5 p.m. on September 15th, and the applied numbers will not be editable after that lock. What should EPP staff be doing now? If you have not already done so, now is the time for you to gather the number of applicants that applied to each of the programs within your EPP during the 22-23 academic year. Remember, the applied number includes the number who applied to your undergraduate teacher program, your post-bac principal program, your alternative educational diagnostician program, and so forth, including all other programs under the EPP's county district number. You have reported data about applicants. Now let's look at the data you will report for candidates who have been admitted. Admission records must be created for each candidate admitted to any program within the EPP. Candidates with formal admission dates in 22-23 are reported as admitted in 22-23, even if they don't actually start training until after September 1st. When a candidate is admitted to your EPP, create an admission record within 7 calendar days of the candidate's formal date of admission. When the record is created, ECOS will then add the candidate to your test approval list for the required certificates identified in the admission record. The candidate's status will be marked as eligible because the EPP decides when they are ready for testing and when to approve it. Additionally, the candidate is automatically placed onto the finisher records list with a status of other enrolled for the certificates identified in the admission record. It is important to note that you have until August 31st to create admission records for candidates that may have fallen through the cracks and were admitted with no admission record created. You will have until September 15th to create an admission record for anyone admitted with an admission date in the last week of August 2023. EPPs are encouraged to carefully review admission records early in the data reporting process to pinpoint any corrections that TEA may need to assist with. If our team gets overwhelmed with last-minute data fix requests, then we cannot possibly complete every request by your reporting deadlines. To create admission records, you have 2 options. Use the admissions search in ASEP for individual entries, or prepare a CSV file to upload multiple records using the Upload Admissions option. ECOS will allow you to edit certain fields through the upload or manually, such as adding SAT or ACT scores for your teacher candidates if they were initially missing. A note about SAT, ACT, and GRE scores. If your university requires them for admission, then you must report them. Additionally, the GRE is required for admission into a non-teacher program if the applicant has a GPA that is less than 2.5. When applicable, this GRE score is reported also. As a reminder, because the admission record is supposed to be created within 7 calendar days of the date of formal admission, all of your candidates should already have an admission record. That should make your data review and reporting easier. To make reporting easier and to help problem solve issues, let's look at some areas in which common errors occur. You cannot create an admission record for someone who is already enrolled in the same certificate area in any EPP. This intentional restriction ensures data cleanliness. If you try to recreate an admission record for an already enrolled candidate, an error message will indicate the EPP's county district number where the candidate is enrolled. This allows you to contact the other program to resolve any record discrepancies. Another area with common errors is the CSV file upload process. The format of the CSV file is sensitive. So to check formatting easily, open the CSV file with Notepad. Stray marks, spaces, and lines are noticeable in Notepad. Correct any errors in Notepad and save the changes for a hassle-free upload. We'll have a slide later that demonstrates this process. Also, when creating the admission record, the certificate and route identifiers must agree. The CERT license ID should be the correct CERT license ID for the specified route, and the role should be appropriate for the specified CERT license. Notice in the picture, the candidate is enrolled in an ACP seeking LOTE Spanish. The route identifies the candidate as alternatively certified. The CERT license ID for LOTE Spanish offered in the alternative route is 1262, which is different than the CERT license ID for LOTE Spanish for an undergrad or post-bac program. Finally, LOTE Spanish is a classroom teaching certificate, so 029 is the required roll code. If you were to choose, let's say, principal as the role, you should get an error message. Admission records cannot be deleted by the EPP. The admission record should not be deleted or changed if the candidate leaves the EPP after admission or changes certification categories. The candidate's admission in the original category remains unchanged despite any subsequent changes to candidate status or certificate area. When a candidate leaves the EPP, you must manually or through a bulk upload change their status to remove in test approval and on the finisher records list. If a candidate changes certificate area after admission, do not alter the existing admission record and do not create a new admission record. Instead, retain the written change request in the candidate's file and update the information in test approval and the finisher records list in ECOS to reflect the new certificate they are seeking. You can add or change this information either manually or through a bulk upload. Remember, admission of a candidate is an event. The admission record is a snapshot of that event, so should not be deleted after the fact, unless you made a mistake. Once saved, most of the admission record cannot be altered or deleted by the EPP. If you made an error in creating the admission record, such as creating a record for someone who was not admitted, or entering an incorrect TEA ID number, submit a help desk ticket to TEA and a specialist will assist you with the needed corrections, including deleting an admission record the EPP created in error. Similarly, if you entered the wrong route, you'll need to get in touch with TEA to correct it. Let's look at some areas of the admission record that EPP staff should be able to edit. When reviewing admissions data for completeness and accuracy, you may need to edit certain numbers due to data entry errors or to add missing data like SAT, ACT, or GRE scores if relevant for your EPP. You can access editable fields through admissions search or maintain admissions options. Additionally, admission records have the upload to edit functionality. To clarify some confusing areas that generate questions each year, overall GPA and admission GPA are required to be reported for candidates in all certification classes. These numbers may be the same or they may be different, depending on whether you used the overall GPA or the last 60 hours GPA for determining admission. Subject area hours and subject area GPA are required to be reported for teacher candidates only. SAT, GRE, and ACT scores are required to be reported if they are collected. If you need to edit other fields, like changing the route from postbac to alternative, or if the admission record was created in error and must be deleted, contact your TEA education specialist for assistance. Submit a written request via the help desk to Educator Preparation for the necessary edits. To use the upload to edit feature that allows you to edit several admission records simultaneously through the upload process, just select Upload Admissions from the ASEP drop-down menu in the ECOS for Entities green screen. Select the current year and then update admissions from the new Upload Type drop-down menu. Then browse for your CSV file and upload. Be careful with this feature because any information you enter for the candidate in the upload file will write over existing data in editable fields. As with other data portals and ECOS for entities, edits to the admission records are captured in the audit trail in the ECOS for admins purple screen. To clarify, if your EPP collects SAT, ACT, or GRE scores, you must report them. This applies especially to university-based EPPs, as they are required to report these scores if the university itself mandates them for university admission. Additionally, if an EPP requires these scores for admission, such as the GRE score for a candidate with a GPA below 2.5 who is seeking admission into a non-teacher program, then reporting the score for the relevant candidate is mandatory. It is important that admission data is complete and accurate, as admission data serves various purposes. Data that EPPs report is provided to a variety of requesters. For more insights, explore the data dashboards on the TEA website. You can find them linked on the Consumer Information page under the Texas Educators drop-down menu. Additionally, the EPP is responsible for maintaining an incoming class average GPA of 3.0 or higher, which can be verified through GPA data collected from your admission records. Finally, the technology fees paid each year by the EPP are determined based on the number of candidates admitted in all certification programs within that EPP during the year. Please take time to review records to ensure they are complete and accurate before data is due on September 15th. What should EPP staff be doing right now? As we said earlier, you will need to ensure each candidate in your EPP in any program, including teachers and non-teachers, admitted from 9/1/22 through 8/31/23, has an admission record that completely and accurately reflects the area or areas in which the candidate was admitted and all applicable admission data for that candidate. Candidate enrollment data must be reported by the EPP. This reporting requirement has been in effect since the 2009-2010 reporting year. Before that, only finishers were reported. If you need to access finisher lists prior to 2008-2009, they are available in the archived ASEP. Currently, the Maintain Finishers link on the ASEP menu in your green screen links to the finisher records list that reflects the enrollment status of all of your candidates. The finisher records list can be filtered in 4 ways. You can see all candidates, candidates with other enrolled status, candidates with finisher status, or candidates that have been removed. For your convenience, the upload to update functionality is available to change the enrollment status of multiple candidates simultaneously using a CSV file and bulk upload. When reporting the enrollment status of candidates on the finisher records list, remember that everyone remaining in your program by August 31st is either a finisher because they finished all of your requirements by August 31st, or they are still working on requirements, so they are other enrolled. To summarize, candidates who left or were asked to leave the program during 22-23 should have been removed from the finisher records list. Those who remain as of August 31st, 23 should have a status of finisher if they have completed all EPP requirements during the year, or other enrolled if they have requirements remaining to be completed. Note, finisher status is not determined based on whether a person has been recommended for a standard certificate or has passed a certification exam. These factors are not considered criteria for determining finisher status. Candidates can be placed on the Finish Your Records list in two ways. First, candidates designated as other enrolled at the end of one year will automatically roll over to the next reporting year, saving you from creating a new list each year. However, it can become problematic if candidates who have left the program are not removed and continue to roll over unnoticed year after year. To ensure accuracy, review and update the list annually. The list has an export feature that will allow you to generate and export a file you can use to compare with your local enrollment lists to identify those who should be removed. The second way an enrollment record may be created for a candidate, as previously identified, is by creating an admission record for the candidate. In doing so, the candidate will be populated onto the Finish Your Records list with the status of other enrolled. This is one of the features of the admission page that we feel is a fantastic time saver for EPPs. Please note that the EPP cannot add a new candidate directly to the Finish Your Records list without first creating an admission record for that candidate. There are 3 different ways to add, delete, or update records for candidates on your Finish Your Records list. First, you can search for an individual candidate using Student Search and update the record from the resulting student maintenance screen. You can also filter and generate a list via Maintain Finishers and change candidate status for an existing record from there. Don't forget to save it. Finally, you can use the Upload Finishers bulk upload option to add or delete a record or change the enrollment status for one candidate or for multiple candidates simultaneously. As previously mentioned, candidates who leave the EPP but are not removed from the Finish Your Records list will continue to roll over to a new list each year. To assist EPPs with cleaning up the Finish Your Records list, the mid-year data set sent out in March identify candidates who have been other enrolled in your EPP for 5 or more years. If you have not already done so, please take some time to review these candidates and determine if they are still enrolled or if they should be removed. If you find they should be removed, it is easy to just change their status for 22-23 to remove. When the 23-24 year unlocks and the Finish Your Records list rolls over, the removed candidates will drop off your list, allowing you to start off the new year with a clean and accurate Finish Your Records list. This is a screenshot we showed you last year that is an example of a candidate's enrollment record with one EPP. The example on this slide shows a candidate admitted in 2012 who has been on the Finish Your Records list but has not been active in the EPP for all of those years. For candidates such as this one, we also frequently find active test approvals from the past, likely unknown to the EPP. TEA continues to receive calls from EPPs and individuals seeking admission into EPPs because the EPP cannot create an admission record for a candidate who is listed as other enrolled in another EPP. Additionally, TEA reports various data based on EPP enrollment records. This cleanup is important to maintain accuracy in the data you report for your EPP. So before we move on to the next section, let's take a minute and summarize some key ideas regarding reporting the candidate enrollment on the Finish Your Records list. First, if a candidate leaves your program, remove them from your Finisher list. Second, when candidates finish your program, update their status to Finisher on your Finish Your Records list. Third, if a candidate changes the certificate sought, including content area or route, remove previous certificate and update the Finish Your Records list to reflect the new certificate. And finally, if a candidate adds another certificate area, add another row to the candidate's record with the additional certificate. What should EPP staff be doing now? For reporting 22-23 data, you should verify and update where necessary the status of every person in each of your programs. Remember, after the 22-23 reporting year locks, you will no longer be able to update status for 22-23. Clinical experience records enable the EPP to efficiently submit essential information regarding clinical experiences, including clinical teaching, internships, and practicums, which they are obligated to monitor and document. EPPs were notified in the 21-22 ASEP training last August that clinical experience records would go into effect for the 22-23 reporting year. At that time, EPPs were provided guidance on the data to be collected to create clinical experience records. Note that candidates must have an admission record and must have an enrollment record on the finisher records list before the EPP can create the clinical experience records for the candidates. Any person in any program within the EPP who started or completed any part of the required clinical experience during the 22-23 academic year must have a clinical experience record. EPPs can create this record either manually through the clinical experience records option or in bulk through the upload clinical experience option. To create a record manually, search on the TEAID number of the person whose record you want to create, and then select Add Record. This option is also useful if you need to edit a record that is already in place. Note that a record cannot be edited if there are observations tied to it. To create records in bulk, create a CSV formatted file containing the information in the upload instructions, and then upload the file. In ECOS, clinical experience records are generated by pulling data from various sources, including candidate certificates, wherever possible. The clinical experience record is linked to observation records, as the observations are recorded during the candidate's clinical experience. Both the observation report and clinical experience report will share data. To create an observation record, a valid clinical experience record is required. Some observation data will also be collected and stored within the clinical experience record. Once a clinical experience record is linked to an observation, the record cannot be deleted. A candidate must have an admission record with the EPP and must be listed as either other enrolled or finisher on the finisher records list. If you need assistance using the clinical experience feature, please refer to the clinical experience records and observations webinar and the technical manual that are both published on the program provider resources page at tea.texas.gov. If you forget the assignment types, you will find a list of options in ASEP under the Upload Clinical Experience tab. Here are the assignment types for the different candidates. For teacher internships, ECOS will auto-populate the assignment type from the intern or probationary certificate using the following rules. First, teacher candidate with an intern certificate will use assignment type INT. Second, the teacher candidate with a probationary certificate will use assignment type PRO. And third, a teacher candidate with a second probationary certificate, which we call a probationary extension, ECOS will use and automatically assign it as a PROX for observation purposes. For clinical teacher candidates, most everyone will select CLIN or CLIN regardless of assignment type. Only the programs who have an SBEC approved clinical teaching exception will use the CLIN EXC assignment type. and then only for those candidates who completed clinical teaching under that exception. To my knowledge, there are only 2 EPPs that have the clinical teaching exception approved. For non-teacher candidates completing a practicum, even if they hold an intern or probationary certificate, the NON-TCH assignment type will be auto-populated. For example, if you have a principal candidate who completed the practicum while employed as an assistant principal, and you recommended an intern certificate for that candidate, the NON-TCH code will populate for you, and then you'll select the clinical experience model as practicum INT. This aligns with practicum language in Texas Administrative Code. Please note a new feature that was effective in June for clinical experience records created for teacher internships is the late hire flag. When you create the clinical experience record, you will identify if your teacher intern is a late hire or not. The options for this field are yes if the candidate is a late hire or no if the candidate is not a late hire. The definition of late hire is in 19 TAC 228.2, number 25, and can also be accessed by clicking on the late hire link in number 7 on the upload instructions. This flag is not applicable to non-teacher candidates holding intern or probationary certificates and is not applicable to clinical teachers. Remember, the late hire status is based on 2 criteria. The candidate must have an admission date and a district hire date that is within the 45-day window before the first day of instruction, or that is after the first day of instruction in that district. Both criteria must be met for the candidate to be a late hire. The late hire flag is not retroactive, so you will not be required to go back and add that information to any clinical experience records you have created already prior to the implementation of the late hire flag. Any clinical experience records you create now will require a yes or no response in that field to be able to save the record. EPPs were notified last fall in training that, per EPP requests, the TEAID number for cooperating teachers, mentors, and site supervisors would be optional to report for 22-23, but would be required for reports in 23-24. TEAID numbers are important as they validate the data when a last name may be common, and additionally allow connections to be established with other data, which can be used for a variety of purposes, including to inform policy decisions. The transition runway from optional to required has allowed EPPs time to establish processes around collecting cooperating teacher, mentor, and site supervisor data. This slide is a reminder that the TEAID for these campus personnel will be required for clinical experience records for 23-24. Note that we bumped out the start date for the TEAID requirement from 9/1 to 9/16 to avoid disruptions to 22-23 data reporting. What should the EPP be doing now? You should be putting the finishing touches to your clinical experience records. EPPs are able to generate a report of all records and export to a list if that is helpful. Data around field supervision is another important area that you will report. Formal observations for all candidates completing a clinical experience, including clinical teaching, internship, or a practicum during the 22-23 academic year must be reported. You will report all formal observations with dates from September 1st, 22 through August 31st, 23, including any extra formal observations that were completed in addition to the required minimum number. As we consistently recommend, we hope you have been uploading observations as they occurred throughout the year. This is an approach that can help you make sure you have not forgotten anyone so that your EPP can meet your 95% or higher completion requirement for field supervision. Additionally, inputting observations as well as all other required data throughout the year enables the EPP to avoid pitfalls of last-minute reporting. EPPs must report formal observations completed in 22-23 for all candidates who participated in a clinical experience, which includes clinical teaching, internship, or a practicum. If the candidate completed the clinical experience in 22-23, the number of observations for that candidate must meet or exceed the minimum number of required observations for the type of clinical experience in which the candidate participated. For example, if a candidate completed an internship while holding a probationary certificate, the minimum number of observations required for that candidate would be 3. But if the program actually conducted 4 formal observations, then the EPP would report all 4 observations in ECOS. If the candidate completed a portion of the clinical experience in 22-23 and expects to complete the remainder of that experience in 23-24, the program must enter the 22-23 observations now, so they will be available and linked to the candidate in 23-24 when the candidate finishes the assignment. For your reference, the observation schedules for teacher and non-teacher candidates are found in 19 TAC 228.35G and H, respectively. Teacher observations must be 45 minutes or longer in duration. However, for non-teacher candidates, there's more flexibility. The TAC requirement for non-teacher practicums allows a minimum of 3 observations that must total at least 135 minutes, which is equivalent to 3 45-minute observations. So for non-teacher candidates, you could report observations of different durations, like one that was 25 minutes, one that was 60 minutes, and another that was 50 minutes. This is acceptable for non-teacher observations, so you can report those with confidence. Remember though, observations conducted by field supervisors for teacher candidates must be 45 minutes or more for each observation. The observation data that you report should match the data in your records for those observations. You are encouraged to implement quality control measures to ensure observation data is accurate and complete. The EPP cannot add or correct observation data after the reporting year locks on September 15th. And there is no data fix process for TEA to correct or add observations that occurred in a past locked ASEP year. Note that rules changed in 22-23 around teacher observations, which allows up to 2 teacher observations to be conducted virtually. If virtual observations are allowed for teacher candidates, the rules may require more face-to-face observations. So you are encouraged to review the new observation schedules carefully to ensure you have reported the correct number of observations. For more information on the number of observations to be reported, please review the observation schedules in 19 TAC 228.35G or H and the summary graphic that is linked in the observation upload instructions in ECOS. When reporting observations, you must identify if the observation was in person or virtual. This is not a new feature and was existing last reporting year. EPPs have the option to allow up to 2 virtual observations, but are not obligated to do so. For reporting purposes, EPPs must specify in ECOS whether the observation was conducted in person or virtually. This chart provides an example of the number and format of observations if your EPP decides to permit virtual observations. Before implementing virtual observations for teacher candidates, it's important to carefully review the complete rule text in 19 TAC 228.35G to understand specific requirements related to virtual observations. Certain aspects, such as total number of required observations, might change if virtual observations are allowed. TEA strongly encourages EPPs to provide training to field supervisors regarding conducting virtual observations and the related requirements, since field supervisors assigned to teacher candidates may not be accustomed to performing observations virtually. Observation data can be added individually by searching for a candidate in observations, or for multiple candidates using a CSV file via upload observations. It's important to report all formal observations conducted by the field supervisor, not just the minimum number required. For example, if the minimum required observations for a clinical teacher are 3, but your field supervisors complete 5 formal observations, then report all 5 of those formal observations. Only formal observations conducted by the field supervisor should be reported in ECOS. Observations conducted by cooperating teachers, mentors, or site supervisors should not be reported. While it's a best practice to have these campus personnel provide feedback on candidate performance, their observations are not included in ECOS. Instead, retain the evidence in candidates' records as part of the completion documents required to be kept per the records retention requirement in 19 TAC 228.40F. Additionally, although ongoing coaching and support are required in TAC, there is no mechanism in ECOS to collect walkthrough or informal observation data. As a result, walkthrough and informal observation data should not be reported in ECOS either. Also remember the field supervisor that conducted the observation must be listed in your field supervisor database, or you will get an error message when you try to add the observation into ECOS. To access the field supervisor database, select the field supervisors option on the ASEP menu. Remember that a field supervisor that is tied to an observation may not be removed from the database. You should get an error message if you attempt to remove a field supervisor that is tied to an observation. There is an option in ECOS that lets you generate a report so that you can check the observations you have entered or uploaded for your 22-23 candidates. From the ASEP drop-down menu, select Observations Report, and then filter the report for the 22-23 reporting year. Select the observation type as View All Observations, and then select the academic year option. Remember that TEA will send an observation data set to you in early September. If you have all of your observation data entered and complete by August 31st, the TEA data set can serve as an additional quality control measure to check your work. Remember, you can export the ECOS observation report into a CSV file formatted identically to observation upload file. This allows you to download a list, update the observation information for candidates on that list, then upload the file to add more observations for the candidates. To be successful uploading observations, here are some handy reminders. These reminders were developed from a list of common issues that arise each year around uploading observations. You will find additional tips for all uploads in the data reporting manual. First, remember the candidate must be on the finisher records list as other enrolled or finisher. Second, observations may be entered only into the current unlocked year, which is 22-23. Remember, ECOS has aligned the observation reporting dates with the academic year of September 1st through August 31st. So any observations conducted in summer, such as those for a superintendent candidate, must be entered before ASEP locks on September 15th. Next, the yellow block is a reminder that a clinical experience record must be in place prior to uploading observations. The green block reminds us that the field supervisor must have a TEAID number to be entered into the field supervisor database. When entering the observation data, remember the observation date cannot be before the assignment start date or after the assignment end date. And finally, the teal block is a reiteration of the blue block that observations with 22-23 dates cannot be entered in 23-24. So please enter those now. What should the EPP be doing now? You should be putting the finishing touches to your observation data. The data sets you will receive from TEA will help you cross-check your final data. Let's review uploads. Each reporting area under the ASEP menu, along with test approval, has an upload option. If your upload file keeps failing, check its formatting. Error messages may not always point to the exact formatting problem, especially with CSV files, which can be finicky with missing data, stray marks, and column headers. To check for formatting errors, follow these steps. First, check the Excel file. Ensure all cells in a column are justified the same, right or left. Notice how roll code 029 is not justified like the other columns. As an example, remove column headers and save it as a CSV file and close the file. Second, adjust numbers to the correct format. Ensure numbers are represented with the correct decimal place. For example, add zeros for decimal numbers. Once you have your CSV file correctly formatted, you'll want to double check all formatting is correct for uploading. To double check, you'll need to open in Notepad. To open in Notepad, you'll right-click on the file name, open with Notepad. You'll then check that missing fields are filled with commas. If some data isn't being uploaded, add commas as placeholders so that all fields are complete. Check that numbers are adjusted to the correct format. Ensure numbers are represented with the correct decimal place. For example, add zeros for decimal numbers. Third, remove extra spaces between columns and from ends of rows and delete the last blank row under the last row of data. Finally, save and close. Once confident about the formatting, save and close the file and then upload it. By following these steps, you can troubleshoot and ensure successful uploads without formatting issues. For admission records, if your candidate does not have GPA or does not have subject-specific credit hours, it is acceptable to enter 0.00 for GPA or 0 for credit hours. 0 values are not included in calculations for GPA involving these numbers. If you have upload issues and need a second set of eyes on the file, your education specialist at TEA can assist. Remember, if you must submit a CSV file for us to look at, please use the help desk system, which is secure and protects the candidate information that will be in your data file. Please do not send secure files via email. It should be noted here that data reporting time is crunch time for TEA specialists too. So waiting until the last minute to enter data and request assistance may result in no assistance by the deadline. EPPs can submit data exception requests to remove data points from 22-23 data if needed. The request for exception forms, or RFEs, are available on the Program Provider Resources page on the TEA website. For best performance, ensure your Adobe software is updated. Save the form on your desktop, fill it in, sign, and save it. Then attach it to a help desk ticket. Your education specialist will review the request and either approve or deny it with reason. You will receive a return copy for your records. If you encounter issues where individuals do not have an admission record and are missing from your Finish Your Records list, you can submit a data fix request to TEA via the help desk. There's a process for handling such situations, and the help desk can assist you with this request. To submit a data fix request to TEA for assistance with an admission record. First, to add a new record, create a complete and properly formatted CSV upload file following the instructions in the Upload Admissions tab in ECOS. Submit the file attached to a help desk ticket. Or second, to create an existing admission record, to correct an existing admission record, submit a help desk ticket with specific details on what needs to be changed and identify the piece of the record to be modified. Be clear and specific in your request. Third, keep data consistent. If you change one part of the record, ensure other related fields are updated accordingly. For example, if you change the route from postbac to alternative, also request a change to the CERT license ID to match the new route. And fourth, be accurate and specific. If the data is inconsistent or unclear, TEA staff may not be able to make the correction. Provide clear and accurate information to avoid any confusion. By following these steps and providing accurate information, you can ensure a smoother data fix process with TEA's assistance. Note that an admission record created by TEA through the data fix process does not auto-populate the candidate into test approval or onto your Finish Your Records list. Once the admission record has been created by TEA, the EPP will need to populate test approval and the Finish Your Records list either manually or through an upload. To submit a data fix request for a correction to the Finish Your Records list for a past locked year, submit the request using the form we have posted on the Program Provider Resources page for that purpose. Submit that form attached to a help desk ticket. The form must be signed, but please note the form should be filled in completely before signing because signing will lock off any additional edits. Note, data fix requests for TEA to edit or delete records in ECOS are completed on a first come, first served basis and take time for TEA staff to complete. So please understand that any requests we receive after August 15th may or may not be processed before 5 p.m. on September 15th. We strongly encourage EPPs to plan ahead and review data and submit any needed corrections for 22-23 before August 15th. What does our reporting timeline look like this year? I'm happy to report that it is very short. We can attribute this to a few things. First, the use of exception request forms makes processing much quicker on the TEA side. Second, there is no applied data to reconcile since applied data will be entered by EPPs directly into ECOS. And finally, TEA is providing data sets well before September 15th to give EPPs a chance to review, complete, and correct observation data before the due date. Also, we know all EPPs will have implemented quality control on their reported data, so the data should be perfect and ready to go by September 15th. That all said, here's the timeline. You'll get your observation data sets in early September, and then all data must be complete and accurate and submitted to TEA by 5 p.m. on September 15th when ASEP will lock. All data means data for all of the programs within your EPP and includes updated, accurate, and complete admission records, candidate enrollment status on the finisher records list, clinical experience records and formal observation data as applicable, and applied data. Additionally, your affidavit certifying your data must be submitted with your final data. TEA education specialists will review your data to ensure all data is there and your affidavit of data accuracy. The 22-23 ASEP will not unlock for revisions. Please be very careful and deliberate about ensuring data accuracy. Admissions, finisher records, clinical experience records, observation data, and applied data are all in the ASEP menu. After ASEP is locked, you will not be able to go back and change or enter any data into the locked year. Before we close today, let me highlight some key points that we felt were important enough to repeat. First, all candidates completing clinical teaching, internship, or practicum, including extensions, require field supervision. Clinical experience records and observation data must be reported. Bullet 2 says, admission records cannot be created or updated after August 31st of their admission year. So remember to verify admission records early in the reporting process. This should not be a problem because admission records are required to be created within 7 days of the candidate's formal admission date. Note here, for a candidate admitted in the last week of August, an admission record can be created after August 31st and up to 5 p.m. on September 15th when ASEP locks. Bullet 3, ASEP for 22-23 will not unlock again after it closes on September 15th. So please allow time before September 15th to run quality control on your data. Conduct your data reviews and quality checks at least days before September 15th to allow time for last-minute additions, deletions, and corrections. Bullet 4 says do not rely on upload status results as a quality control measure. Check your work. While there are error messages and warning messages built into all aspects of ECOS for your convenience, including upload status information, we cannot possibly predict all the things that could potentially happen to an upload. So please don't rely on successful upload status as your ultimate quality check. Finally, please remember that TEA time is limited during ASEP reporting, as we are called to assist all EPPs. So submit your request for corrections and request assistance with data entry errors early to ensure your needs are met before the 5 p.m. September 15th deadline. A final important reminder is that TEA relies on our users in the field to let us know when ECOS is not working as it should be. We can expect a slowdown periodically between September 1st and September 15th. However, if something breaks and the screens or data entry portals are not functioning properly, we will need to pull our IT team in to fix it. If you've not already had a chance to take the survey regarding the helpfulness and quality of this webinar, please use the QR code and take a minute and provide us your feedback. We would like to provide trainings to our EPP teams that are helpful, and your feedback is important. We hope this training has been helpful to you. If you have any remaining questions, please type them in the question box or send them to your education specialist. We'll collect them and create FAQs to share with the recorded webinar. If you need assistance while working on your reports, don't hesitate to contact your education specialist. For the most efficient communication, please use the help desk. We're here to support you throughout this reporting process. Stay well, and TEA wishes you successful reporting for 22-23 and a successful school year in 23-24.